In this video I'm gonna talk about every static there is. I'm gonna explain it, show it, roast it if necessary. So if you spend more than 2 minutes scrolling on Instagram or YouTube Shorts as a calisthenics interested individual, you've probably come across one of these, or this, or even this. These are just one of many skills that we describe as a static. But what actually is a static? How many are there and what do these look like? By the end of the video I will have answered all of these questions. If you ever wanted a clear overview of what's out there in calisthenics, this is the video for you. So sit back and enjoy. Alright, what is a static? Let's tackle that question. It's basically a skill that is static, or a skill that originates from a skill that is static. A skill is something that takes technique and, skill. But in calisthenics that's not all, it also takes strength, one of the most important things, and sometimes even flexibility. But some of these skills don't really fit in this definition super well, but they also don't fit in other categories well, but more on that later. Now let's start this video with an absolute banger and talk about the pinnacle of levers, of statics. The magic circle of levers. The planche, the front lever, the back lever and the reverse planche. Now if you think I couldn't have come up with a cornier name than this, then you are absolutely correct. And these can be divided into pull skills and push skills. The planche and the back lever belong to the push skills, and the front lever and the reverse planche into pull skills. Now you might be thinking, in the back lever you're actually pulling, and in the reverse planche you're pushing. And you are correct, because you're pushing away from your body, but you can also observe that in the planche you're moving your arms in the same way that you do in the back lever, in the same direction. And same goes for the reverse planche and the front lever. So that's why they're classified that way, and I think it makes sense. You can do all of these in a neutral, pronated and supinated grip, and of course anything in between. And you can do them in a tucked state, an advanced tuck state, straddle state, half lay, straddle half lay, and of course the full position. You can also take away fingers, those can be counted as variations as well, but I'm not going to list all of them as variations in this video because it would get repetitive real fast. Each of these has so many variations and we're gonna tackle all of them, starting with the front lever. In the front lever you're basically laying down in the air while pulling the bar towards your body. You mainly do this with your back, but the back of your shoulders are also heavily involved. And the first variation is a front lever press or raise. Yeah, this skill has two names and everybody calls it something different. I call them raise because everything else is also called a press, and you're kind of raising your body towards a bar. And that just makes the most sense to me, so I'll be calling them raise. But be aware that a lot of people call it press. And as you can see, you're starting in a front lever and you pull into the reverse hang. You can also do it from a dead hang, which does have more range of motion, but it's easier because the lower part isn't very difficult, and you can just swing up and do the last part, which is the most difficult, with momentum, so it's easier. Next thing on the list is pull-ups. Yeah, the classic front lever pull-up. It's a great movement, I love it. And you're just in the front lever and you pull the bar towards your body. This skill basically gives the illusion of you f***ing the bar. Rumors are that if you do 10 clean pull-ups to touch, you've impregnated the bar. It's basically a bodyweight row, and it consists of the front lever and the touch front lever. And that's our next movement. And you're basically holding the front lever, but you're touching the bar with your body. Okay, next skill is the iguana front lever. This is another grip you can take, but you're gripping one single bar with both of your hands in a neutral grip. You don't see that one very often. This is the wide front lever. It's pretty difficult, just like it gets more difficult to do pull-ups in a wide grip. And it's one step closer to the straight arm touch. which is basically a very wide front lever. So wide in fact that your hips touch the bar. And of course you can do pull-ups in the straight arm touch as well. The range of motion is just negligible. Alright, one arm front lever. Pretty difficult, but you see it a lot, and with shitty form you can, for example, cheat by bending your body in a banana sideways, or of course by piking. Pretty rare to see this one done clean, but it does exist. Archer pull-ups, these are sick and pretty difficult. It's a good step towards the one arm front lever pull-up. So okay, we can't talk about front lever without talking about the Victorian, which is our new base skill. This one can be done on a P-bar, straight bar, the floor and rings, and probably other places, but yeah, whatever. And just like in the front lever, your body is completely straight and horizontal, but your hands are on the same height as your body. The Victorian you can do wide and narrow. Of course you can only go as narrow as your body is. And you can press it or raise it. Yeah, people call them presses, but I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't call it raise, but you could call it that. And here you lift your feet up into the sky. Basically the same thing as a front lever press or raise, but in the Victorian. So let's talk reverse planche. Barely anyone does it, and the few people who do it, most of them don't do it clean. The cleanest I've seen is of this guy, and the reason for that is that it's about twice as hard as it looks. A variation of that would be the reverse planche push-up, which feels a lot like the impossible dip. Most commonly the reverse planche is done on the P-bars, but it's also done on the floor, on rings and the straight bar. But what we haven't seen is the iguana version, or at least a close grip one. I don't think this one's humanly possible at all. And the next one I think isn't either, which is a press. I don't think anyone's ever pressed this one before. It would require a crazy amount of flexibility in your shoulders. What we have seen before though is a front lever pull-up to reverse planche. At least with bad form by Xylus. That's just crazy. Alright, the planche. Probably the most famous, iconic, popular movement here. And everybody loves it, except the people who hate it because they can't get it. Which is entirely understandable. Yeah, pretty self-explanatory if you look at it. At least you would think, because some people actually confuse it with the elbow lever. This is definitely one of the greatest sins of humankind. But let's get into that later. Okay, let's start with an easy variation of the planche, which is the planche lean. And it's probably the easiest variation here. But it heavily depends on how much you lean. That really makes the difference on how hard it is. A very important variation is also the planche press, which is a transition from a planche to a handstand, making it easier to build up your hold times than just doing the isometric strength exercises. Okay, let's talk about the planche push-up. It's basically a push-up, just like you would do it on the floor, but your legs don't really touch the floor. Pretty difficult to pull it off, even in a cheated state. People just instantly have respect for you if you do it. Of course, there's variations to the push-up, like the clap push-up, archer push-up, all of that. And you can also do it in a tuck variation, and it's still a great exercise. Alright, the dead planche. It's basically the Victorian of the planche. And here you're basically doing a planche, but your hands are on the same height as your body. Unlike the Victorian though, it's pretty hard on the wrists, because it goes in ways that it usually wouldn't necessarily show. Unless you do it with supinated grip. But you rarely see that, so maybe I'm wrong. Alright, let's talk about something similar, which is the Maltese. And basically it was inherited from gymnastics, just like the planche, honestly. And in that definition, your hands have to be as low as your body. So you gotta go pretty wide to actually achieve a Maltese. But now you might say, in the dead planche, the hands are also as low as the body. And both do have straight arms. And yes, that's true, but the Maltese has a wide form and the dead planche has a narrow form. Just Remember that. But one might think that they've done a Maltese, and it was actually a wide planche. When is it a wide planche? It's when you have a wide grip, but it's not enough for your shoulders and your body to be on the same height as your wrists. Then it's a wide planche. And yeah, some people might disagree with that, but that's the definition from gymnastics, so we're going with that. A cool variation of the Maltese is the Maltese elevation, where you start laying on the floor and you're grabbing a bar and you pull yourself up into a Maltese. And technically you can do push-ups in the Maltese as well, but it just has almost no range of motion. Iguana planche. This one's a lot harder than the Frontlever version. I personally even struggle to do a tuck planche in the iguana position. Okay, bent arm planche. Your body is basically in the same position as the dead planche, but your arms are bent. And it's actually a lot easier than the full planche, as one might expect. Of course, there's the one-arm planche, pretty self-explanatory. If you can already do a one-arm handstand, you'll have a pretty big advantage here, because it relies a lot more on balance. For some people it's actually pretty similar in terms of difficulty to the full planche. I heard some people can do a one-arm planche and barely even hold a full planche. I know, it's very weird. This is a prayer planche, and it's quite obvious why it's called that way. It's a prayer position. And yeah, the prayer planche is weird. It's supposed to be easier than the full planche, but only if you put the same amount of time into it. So if you can full planche and you've never done a prayer, you most likely can't do it. There's also a one-arm variant of this move, and it's pretty rare to see, and just as weird. Most common setups for the planche are the P-bars, the floor, rings, the straight bar, or someone's ass cheeks. Possibilities are endless. Alright, Backlever. Your body basically has the same position as the reverse planche, but instead of being the hardest variant, it's the easiest. But if you've tried a backlever in your life, you know it's kind of uncomfortable and your muscles are kinda stretched out, which actually helps you to hold the position. The muscles used are similar to the planche, actually very similar. And if you're good at planche, you can probably backlever as well. Just like in the front lever, you can do pull-ups in the back lever, a touch hold, and all kinds of variations, like the straight arm touch. You can do this one on the back lever as well. You can do weird stuff like the iguana back lever. And of course, change the width of your grip. Notice though that if you grab too wide, you'll actually end up in a Maltese. And the Maltese is pretty much the breaking point from the planche to the back lever anyways. Back lever press is a thing as well, just like the touch back lever press. And of course the back lever has a one-arm variant as well, but some people actually say it's easier than the regular back lever, and you can fake it quite easily by warming yourself in and doing some form tricks. So for those of you who want to flex as much as possible with the minimal work, this one might be for you. And from the back lever we can actually transition really well to the Hefesto, where you basically start in a quite similar position and you do a behind your back muscle up towards a reverse front position where you can sit down. But technically speaking, the Hefesto actually ends in this position, which I didn't know for a long time. I always thought that the people who did it kind of skipped part of the range of motion. But if you try to get from this position into a reverse support position, it doesn't actually require that much strength. But it is a challenge to get your butt over the bar. That's the main thing. This movement is one of the most dangerous calisthenics movements ever, at least for the tendons of the biceps, and it stretches out the shoulder a lot, so definitely be careful. We don't want to enter Snap City. In terms of variations, we've got the back lever Hefesto, which is starting in the back lever, and then you pull yourself up like this. And the main challenge is actually at the bottom of the movement, because it basically starts with curling your own body weight in the back lever position. And it's also hard in the tuck position, but not quite as much. Next variation is Entrada de Angel. You start in the dislocated position, just like the other variations, but you do it wide. And you're basically in a dead hang with false grip, which you don't need, but it greatly minimizes wrist discomfort. And then you basically do a pull-up behind the neck, get your elbows over the bar, and then do the rest of the Hefesto. Then there's of course wide Hefesto, Archer Hefesto, and one arm Hefesto. Yes, this has been done. My god, what even is this? Now the Hefesto is sort of a muscle up, but the muscle up itself isn't actually considered aesthetic by most people. So we won't be including it. Fine, we will. So the muscle up is a basic. Or is it? The Hefesto is sort of a muscle up. That one's considered aesthetic. And the reverse muscle up is considered aesthetic too. So why wouldn't the muscle up be? Oh my god, my head is smoking. Well, let's settle this once and for all. In the comment section there will be 2 comments. One, you can vote for the muscle up as a basic, and the other one as aesthetic. I'm very curious how this will go. In my opinion, none of these categories really fit. What would fit though is sort of a dynamic skill, but dynamics are already taken for that other stuff. Yeah, I don't really have to give a description for the muscle up, right? It's an extended pull-up that leads to a support position. It feels weird to put the muscle up in a statics video. I mean, what is it known for? It's pretty much on every basic competition ever, and it makes up about 50% of Ian Barsikle's content. He's good at them though, I'll give him that. Alright, back to topic. There are so many muscle up variations. The likelihood of me getting all of them, thinking about all of them, is basically 0. Hey, that's clickbait! Shut up! Okay, let's quickly go through all of them. There's close grip muscle ups, there's wide grips muscle ups, there's the goddamn X grip muscle up, which is actually pretty difficult. Supinated muscle up, that one's pretty fun. We've got the commando or switch grip muscle up, the one arm muscle up, which has actually never been done before, completely clean. Somewhat clean, yes, but never without any body English or swinging. It's actually no wonder, the muscle up is already pretty difficult, and leaving one arm out and then still doing it clean, yeah, impossible basically. Ooh, we got the reverse muscle up. This is one of my favorite skills ever and definitely on my to-do list of skills I want to learn. And you start in a reverse dead hang and you do a bodyweight curl basically, and you end up in a handstand. How dope is that? Alright, we got the wing muscle up. We've got different grips like the false grip or leaving away fingers, or even the no grip muscle up, where you just put your hand on the bar and grab it in this awkward position with your wrist without your fingers touching. There's L-sit muscle ups, or even the V-sit muscle up, which you rarely ever see. I don't think I've seen it ever in real life. Then there's the shotgun muscle up. This one's actually pretty sick. You never do a dip and you don't actually end up in the support position. Then we've got the pole muscle up, the switch grip muscle up, and then we've got the archer or typewriter muscle up. This one is straight from 2010. Alright, let's move on to something better. The iron cross. And yes, you're basically T-posing, but it's not a bug, it's an achievement.
You still need to prove yourself, Whelp. Get away from me.
This one's actually as difficult as it looks. which means that we won't have a lot of people who think they can do this one even though they've never trained a day in their life. And we can't say that for a lot of other skills we have on this list. But let's get straight into the variations. We've got different poses like the L cross, which is an L sit in the iron cross, and we've got the V cross, which is a V sit in the iron cross. And there's a lot of other poses as well that you can do. And this is the butterfly. It's basically a wing muscle up with straight arms.
Why didn't you put it in the muscle up category then?
Oh, come on. And then we have easy things like the inverted cross, which is basically a handstand but in an iron cross. And we actually have a butterfly variation for this one as well, which is the inverted butterfly. And then there's the Azarian, also called the Olympic cross, where you twist your arms in this weird way so your body is facing a different direction. Yeah, random. Okay, let's talk L-sit. L-sit has a lot of variations and it's a static as well. And this is what it looks like. No surprises here, you've probably seen it. And variations of it are the V-sit or the I-sit. And they are very similar and kind of interchangeable in my opinion. Lots of people call the I-sit V-sit. There's the mana, where you bring your hips up so that your upper body is actually horizontal to the floor and your legs are just like in the V-sit. And you can actually press into some weird dislocated handstand from this. And this is called the reverse press or the mana press. And of course we can't forget about the one arm L-sit. This one looks pretty sweet in my opinion, and it uses a lot of flexibility and compression strength. Balance too, no doubt about that. Let's talk handstand. I think we all know what a handstand is. For the few people that don't know, no, just kidding. Let's get straight into the variations. We've got close grip and wide grip, aka Japanese handstand. It can be done on the floor, P-bars, straight bar, rings. We've pretty much got infinite options of where we can do a handstand. Just like most other skills here, you can do it in a supinated, pronated or neutral position. So let's get into some more variations. We've got the one-arm handstand. This one's got its own variations as well, like the rocket or the straddle. Straddle is probably where most people start practicing the one-arm handstand. Another variation of the one-arm handstand is basically the one-arm flag, which looks similar to the one-arm planche, but your body is actually completely sideways, similar to a human flag. That's why it's called a one-arm flag. And no, it's not this one. And as you can see here, the one-arm flag can actually be done with both arms as well. Obviously you can do the straddle handstand and other leg poses. Then we got the hollow back. Not everybody likes the look of this one, but I think it looks sick when you do it after a planche press. Oh, and I almost forgot about the handstand press, where you start with your feet on the bottom and press them up into the handstand. You can do this one with bent arms and straight arms, and from a pike or a straddle. Or a tuck. Of course there's also handstand push-ups, which is technically a variation of the handstand, but the handstand push-ups already has so many goddamn variations of it that we are going to be talking about all of these too. Can be done in a wide grip or a diamond handstand push-up grip, which is very difficult. And if we are already talking about doing them wide, you can also do it as an archer, of course. One arm handstand push-up, never been done legit. Some people might point out this video of Imhäuser's, but it's actually flipped around. This one is not legit. 90-degree push-ups, the 90s. This one's basically a transition between the handstand and the bent arm planche. And pretty similar to that is the dead press, where you start laying on the floor and then you press up into the handstand. It looks similar, but it's much harder actually. Then there's a tiger band push-up, where you basically go down normally, but then you switch into the forearm stand, and then you switch back and press back up. You can do this one on the floor or parallel bars. There's probably other places you can do it, but these are the most common ones. Then there's deep handstand push-ups. These cost a lot of strength, and at the bottom part it's actually mostly fine, but then you press up again and then you lose so much strength. And some people actually call that a reverse muscle up as well. It is extremely similar, but in my opinion it's a bit different still. Then there's also clap push-ups, which are pretty sick. I've only ever done one, and that was on an air track back in the day when I still did all kinds of flips and my legs got tired and I got bored, and so I did that. The human flag, a static as well. Crazy, right? You basically hold yourself horizontally and you do that on a pole or a vertical ladder in a sideways position, just like this. You've probably seen it before, but it has some interesting variations to say the least. Let's start with the basic ones, which is the raise, where you just raise your body up to the pole. Then we got pull-ups, pretty cool, you don't really see those a lot. And if you can actually make these look like regular pull-ups, you're a legend in my book. But then there's also the behind the back flag. This one's basically a twisted back lever where you hold yourself on a ladder. I know, very weird. And you can do this one the other way around too. And this one is called the T flag. I didn't know this one existed either. So the T flag is essentially just a planche, but twisted in this really weird way. And the best thing is, it's actually possible to do push-ups like this as well. So you can do flag planche push-ups. Pretty outrageous. Then we got the X grip flag. And like the name says, you do an X grip, but the pole is not next to your body, but on your hips. And then there's also the close grip flag, where your hands are shoulder width apart. I've never seen this one either, my god. Yeah, some people in the statics community dislike the human flag, but it's its own element and some people actually train it and achieve crazy things with it. Next element, impossible dips. With these you basically do a dip, but you land on your elbows and you stay leaned back, so you can't cheat here. If you're not leaned back, then it doesn't count. This one really targets the long head of the triceps, and a lot of people actually say that you get this one for free when you train a lot of planche and front lever and you get strong at that. Not my experience, but some people are just able to do them and they don't seem to train for it that much. And the impossible dip can actually also be done on a straight bar or the rings, not just P-bars. Let's talk about ring transitions. A lot of skills are actually just transitions from one skill to another skill, and then this one is called its own skill. And yes, there are pretty much so many possible combinations that it's actually kind of silly to give each one their own name. But a lot of them have a name and a lot of them are actually pretty cool. So let's talk about them. Alright, most of these are straight up taken from gymnastics, but not all of them. And what you'll notice as well is that they are mostly named after people. So you can't even guess the variation based on just hearing the name, except for maybe one example, which is the Caruso. If this name rings a bell, you can probably imagine what this will be. Yes, that's right, it's a front lever to Victorian. Yes, extremely difficult, but he somehow makes it look so easy. Then we have the Nakayama, which is a back lever to cross. This transition happens with completely straight arms, which is the case for almost all of these. Yes, this is so sick, I know. And the next one is the pinata, which is basically a front lever to cross. Next skill, a Zarian. Here you basically also do a front lever raise, but you end up doing a Maltese and then going into cross. Straight body, straight arms, straight fire. Tell me. I can't help it, I'm Gen Z. Next skill, Cormona. Backlever to inverted cross. Yeah, just that. Sounds easy, right? Yeah, absolutely nothing special here. You will see this one any day in the kindergarten. And now we're gonna talk about 3 skills that are pretty damn similar, extremely cool, and all have their own name. And the first skill of these is the Zanetti. Here you start in the back lever and push up into a planche with completely straight arms. This one's the most difficult of these. Then we got the Van Gelder, where you start in the planche, go into the back lever, and you go back to the planche or a Maltese. The only difference here is that you start in the planche and not the back lever. And on this one you can use the stretch reflex as an advantage. And then we got the Pelican, which is basically a Van Gelder, but you can bend your arms. So it's actually a deep planche push-up on rings. You don't actually need to do it on the rings, you can also do it on buckets. Yeah, or poles. Let's just go with poles. Unless you're Asian, ignore that. Next skill, Balandine. Here you start in a dead hang and you do a butterfly into a Maltese. Or into an inverted hang. It has different variations. And last but not least, we've got the Vorobyov or the Zhu Jingwan. And it's basically just an inverted cross to a cross, or a V-cross in the latter case. And you do this by rotating backwards into a back lever and then into the cross. Of course, with straight arms and a straight body. Alright, that was really sick. Gymnastics has some really cool strength elements. Oof, okay, that was a lot. And to finish the video off, I've just collected some random skills that I didn't really find a good category for. So I just call it random skills. Starting off with the dragon press. This one's insanely similar to the Victorian press on the floor, but your upper back is actually touching the floor, so it's a bit easier. Still very difficult. Then we have the dragon flag. This one's a great movement for the abs, as it's just as taxing on them than the front lever, but you take some important muscles out of the equation, like the back, and that makes it easier to focus on the abs without your back failing first. And we have another flag variant.
Why didn't you put it in the human flag category?
Yes, okay, you're right this time. Anyways, you grab a pole with your hands next to your head and then you pull yourself up, and that's the position. And then we've got the foot flag, which is also not in the right category. Oops. And it's the first movement that involves legs. Can't make this shit up. And yes, it works like the human flag, but you hook your feet into a pole. And to be honest, I've ever only seen it done by this guy. Speaking of legs, it's time to include the pistol squat. Yeah, it's probably a basic, but who cares? Let's throw it in here so that we have some more leg representation, diversity. What the fuck? Yeah, it's a one-legged squat, all I'm gonna say about that. And I'm actually gonna include the dragon squat as well in this. I don't know if this one can be called a basic, probably more of a static than a basic. Actually, I don't know. Then we've got the one arm pull up or chin up, and this one is probably also a basic. But now it's time for the highlight of statics. The pinnacle of levers. The elbow lever. Probably the most hated static skill of all time. The elbow lever is known for giving you about 40% of the look of the planche, with only 2% of the work. And closely following, we've actually got the one arm elbow lever. This was the thumbnail of every third parkour compilation video from 2010. I swear to God, I already cringed back then. Tough for me to claim this as a calisthenics skill, but I guess we gotta take it. I mean, where else is it? Next one is kind of a legend. It's the close to impossible. And I don't think this one has ever been done before legitimately. I know there's this picture floating online where somebody is actually doing it with pretty good form, but it could also be fake. I mean, it takes so much grip strength to hold yourself in that position, it just doesn't seem realistic to me. But the closest thing we get is this one, and it makes it similar to a front lever because you're pulling your arms in a very similar direction. And this video is taking so long to make, it's actually gonna make me commit suicide. Which brings us to the next movement, which is the neck hold. Terrible transition. Don't worry about me, I'm fine. I swear I'm fine. And this neck hold can actually be done two ways. One where it actually looks like you're committing suicide, and the other one's on the back that actually looks fine. It's still pretty painful, but not quite as much. And that's it. I can't believe we've done it. If you're still watching the video and you want me to do more content like this, make sure to give it a like, and yeah, see you around.